Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to a very special edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. That's right, folks. We are chilling in the comic book corner once again as we continue on the Seaman's Infinity War countdown. Today marks 11 days from the release of Avengers Infinity War, which means we are up to number 9 on our list. The third movie of Phase 2. You know the drill, folks. Pull up a chair, take a seat. Tonight, I am talking about, for the first time ever, my movie poster's right. We are finally talking about Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Oh, God. This is going to be a tough one to get through because of the exact opposite reason that Dark World was tough to get through. There's so much awesome stuff in this movie. Oh, my God. All right, we got to keep our thoughts together. I've got notes that I'm going to try to stick to so that we can get through this. Let's start with the concept of this movie, which is we are following Cap. He's working with S.H.I.E.L.D., working with Nick Fury, Maria Hill, Black Widow, just doing missions. And as they do, the first mission leads them to find something is amiss. Turns out, long story short, Hydra has infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., and the rest of the movie is trying to pinpoint where and how they've infiltrated and how to, exterminate the infiltration. It is a wonderful spy film. This isn't just a superhero movie. This is a straight-up spy flick. We've played in the spy room plenty of times. We've talked about that in the past movies. This one just lives in that room, and it's brilliant. So much credit goes to Anthony and Joe Russo, the Russo brothers. I'm going to start right here. Big clap, man. You guys. Look, Joss Whedon got us off on the right foot with bringing in all these other characters into movies, right? The Avengers was just so perfect for what the Avengers had to be. And then the Russo brothers show up, and it is no shock that they didn't give them Avengers 2. We gave Joss a second one. But they said, this movie was so good, why don't you try to handle a bunch of heroes in the next Captain America, Civil War. Knock it out of the park. Boom, here we are, Avengers Infinity War. We're counting down to the Russo brothers' next film, and of course they have Avengers 4 as well. No shock, man. These guys, brilliant. The way they handle all the moving parts of this movie, all the different characters, nobody, suffers at all. Everyone gets their screen time. Everyone has something to do. It's phenomenal. For me, the best solo film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I've always said, Iron Man is my number one origin film. It's just the perfect origin story, and I love it. And it's my number 2 in the solo films, and it was number 1 until I got to this one, man. I can't put it above the Avengers because just the feeling that you get when you got the Avengers that first time, nothing captured that feeling. But man, did this movie get me so excited. I walked out of that movie theater going, I'm blown away that someone could do that with a superhero movie. And that's all the credit to the Russo brothers. Because obviously the cast, we've been with the cast for a long time. We know, outside of Anthony Mackie, we know what all these guys can do. And how they just craft this movie, work this movie, use their characters, the action sequences. Oh my gosh. So many props to the Russo brothers. And like I said, the action sequences are really what thrives in this movie, on top of an unbelievable story and just really, really smart writing. But like I said, the action sequences, man, the hand-to-hand combat choreography is insane. It's so intricate. The camera cuts. There's a sequence with Cap and Winter Soldier where they're fighting and Winter Soldier pulls out a knife. First, since we're talking there, it's the first big Winter Soldier battle. And this scene is just unbelievable. Where, you got Winter Soldier, who's actually Bucky Barnes, played by Sebastian Stan. He shows up, man, he's ripping car doors off. There's gunfire, their car flips. Cap does this awesome thing where he takes Falcon and Black Widow busts the door off so that it lands and the car can keep flipping. And then we just get into all this awesome action, right? Falcon kind of has to move because he doesn't have anything on him. Black Widow's moving around. And first we get Cap and Bucky. They meet up kind of first with the big kind of fighting. And, dude, there's a sequence, man, where they're fighting and Winter Soldier takes Cap's shield and he's holding it like this at the end of the move. And I'm just sitting there going, oh man, they foreshadow, man. Because one day we are probably going to see Bucky Barnes donning that shield the way Cap does. Hopefully not too soon, though. But it could. It's one of the two scenarios if we lose Steve Rogers. It could be Bucky Barnes or it could be Sam Wilson. So to see Winter Soldier holding the Iron Man shield, so cool. But then that gets discarded, and they go hand-to-hand fighting with this knife, man. And the camera work is insane. Just all these really quick cuts. They're bouncing to all these different angles, but the way it's so tight that you don't feel like you miss anything. And that happens the whole movie. This sequence in particular, also a great moment for Black Widow. She does some awesome hand-to-hand combat stuff against Winter Soldier. And then she has one of the coolest reveals in the movie. Up to this point, Winter Soldier's had goggles on every time we see him and a face mask. And she's shooting, and she hits him in the eye. He has to take the goggles off him. Then we see those eyes, and it confirms that it is indeed Bucky Barnes. But all of the action sequences are like this, right? Anything that involves Cap and Winter Soldier, I mean, you're just talking about top-level hand-to-hand combat stuff. And it's Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan a lot of the time. I mean, like I said, some of these cuts, obviously, you can tell where there might have been a stand-in or a stunt double. But then other cuts where it's really intricate work, you can see clear as day. It's Chris Evans, it's Sebastian Stan, it's Scarlett Johansson, it's Anthony Mackie. Just everything's phenomenal. The thing that stole this movie right from the get-go is the first action sequence. You get this awesome scene where they're kind of going towards a boat. And once again, we find ourselves on a plane, and Cap is doing something that we're very familiar with. That's right, Cap's jumping out of a plane, yet again, and saying some stuff to make us laugh on the way out. One of the things I love about this movie, and we'll talk about it a little bit deeper in a minute, is the relationship between Natasha Romanov, Black Widow, and Steve Rogers, Captain America. And they are working together on this first mission. And it's so good, man, because like they have this back and forth, and she's like, why don't you ask like the girl from accounting out? I'm pretty sure she would say yes. And Cap's like, that's why I don't. She's like, why? Because you're too scared? And he goes, no, I don't have the time. And then boom, out the plane he goes. And Frank Grillo's back there, and he goes, or the guy with Frank Grillo goes, does he have a parachute on? And Frank Grillo's Brock Rumlow, who will eventually be Crossbones for roughly 35 seconds or so in another movie. He's like, no, he doesn't. And, boom, you're off and running. So Cap, obviously, no parachute. He gets all the way down first, climbs onto the boat, and following that, you just get this straight, nonstop cut of Cap just kind of running through and just taking all these dudes out, man. Using his shield 10 times better than we've seen him use it thus far. I'm bouncing it off things, taking dudes out, hand-to-hand combat, clears the entire ship, and one dude drops down from behind him. Bang, bang, Frank Grillo coming in on his parachute, takes out the last guy. Just stuff like that, right? Like, there's very little, like, laugh-out-loud humor in this movie, because it's a non-stop action flick. It does stop occasionally for spy stuff, but the conversations that are going on just lead to just all this natural humor that kind of just makes you chuckle. Not like dying laughing, but like, Frank Grillo's sequence right there. So like that was it, man. I watched that scene. I remember sitting in my chair going, that's what I was missing from Captain America, the First Avenger. I wanted to see them on a mission so you could feel like this cohesiveness of a team. We get that here, man. Then there's a scene with Cap in the elevator. At this point in the movie, Cap is kind of being looked at as like potentially a bad guy or a threat because Nick Fury was in his house and then Nick Fury gets shot. And Cap is in the elevator, and Frank Grillo and his, the other guy that's always with him hop on, and a couple other people hop on, and Cap's just looking around. He knows. And you get this awesome scene inside of an elevator where Cap takes out like 12 dudes. They put magnetic handcuffs on him, so he's like pulling him off the wall, and like it's not easy. Cap's super strong. He can't just go like this, man. At one point he's on top just pulling it off. And it, like, again, so tight, so intricate, especially because this is in a literally tight space with like 12 dudes in an elevator, and Cap, boom, and you just go, wow, I've never seen anything like that. Like I said, we referenced that first fight with Winter Soldier. Phenomenal. The very first time he runs into the Winter Soldier is after Nick Fury gets shot in his apartment. And that comes out of an unbelievable action sequence where we get this awesome chase scene with Nick Fury where kind of like a cop is sitting next to him, and he's like, "You want to see my like registration?" You know, because they're looking at him and my lease. And then all of a sudden, boom, he gets hit by another cop car. 4 more. They're all not real cops. They're all, you know, Hydra agents. And they start just going to town on his car. And there is so much armor on this thing, man. And it's just constantly telling him, like, all right, we're at, you know, window integrity is at 30%, 25%. He waits all the way down to 1%, and then he goes, now. This, like, Gatling gun comes out. He just takes out everybody, and then boom, off. And we get a sick chase scene. But because of that, that leads Nick to Cap's apartment, which leads to a really nice scene with Cap's neighbor. And Cap's, you know, we'll talk about him and Natasha in a minute. But this idea that comes up in the plane of, like, Natasha is constantly trying to get him to go on a date. And he sees his neighbor, and he goes, you know, she's doing laundry. He's like, well, if it's backed up, you're more than welcome to use my washing machine if yours is broken. And she's like, oh, yeah, what did that cost me? He's like, a cup of coffee. And she, you know, turns it down because she's coming from a hospital. But as we've learned that later, it's actually Agent 13 of S.H.I.E.L.D. who's assigned to watch Cap. So when, and we find this out after Fury gets shot, she comes running in and is like, I work for S.H.I.E.L.D. And following that, Cap goes after Bucky. And this sequence is awesome because it's almost like a Hulk-esque sequence where Cap runs through his building in order to catch up to Bucky, who's just sprinting, you know, Winter Soldier just getting away. He cuts through a building, and he's just running through walls. He's running through doors. It's amazing. It's just, it's so simple, man. It's just, and little things like he runs up on the wall to go over like a drawer. It's so quick and simple. And then he gets to, you know, the Winter Soldier, throws the shield, and Winter Soldier just boom, catches it with his iron arm, you know, his metal arm. And you're just like, wow. Even those little things, just so intricate, so tight, so cut so well. You know, anything that's action-oriented in this movie, I could talk for hours. And then, this is the thing that cements, I think, the Russo brothers for me, where I'll trust them doing anything. You get a 28-minute finale. From the time they, you know, at this point, it's Cap, Falcon, Black Widow, they're all on their way to kind of infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D. and start taking it off. They're working with Nick Fury and Maria Hill, and that sequence is unbelievable. I mean, we get to spend time with, you know, Black Widow doing awesome things with Nick Fury inside as they kind of handle Robert Redford, who we'll get to. You get tons of great Cap and Bucky action sequences. CGI-wise, you get this beautiful shot of these 3 helicarriers destroying each other because Cap ends up flipping some things that wipe out the targets. You know, it's going to be like a couple million people. And it becomes just the 3 helicarriers, and boom, boom, boom. And it's just this beautiful sequence, man. You get this shot of, you know, Falcon running out of a building that's falling down because the helicarrier hits it and crushes Frank Grillo, which is what leads to him being Crossbones in a different movie for about 30 seconds. But it's great. You know, he's running, he's like, is that chopper ready? And, you know, Nick Fury and Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow are on their way. And he's like, 41st floor. And he jumps out of the building, and the plane is too low, and it swings sideways. He crashes into it. He's like, I said the 41st floor. Fury's like, it's not like they put the numbers on the outside of the building. Just stuff like that, man. I could talk for hours just on that. But a 28-minute finale that just matches everything that's been doing and just takes it to a bigger place. You know, there's intense moments, there's sad, emotional moments. I mean, Cap and Bucky are fighting each other, and Cap finally knows it's Bucky. You know, and it's just so intense. And I love things, and we'll talk about that. Like I said, the CGI is just gorgeous, man. Anytime Falcon is doing anything, it's awesome. It's so tight. It's so clean, man. Like the way he flies, the way he can shut the wings and like do a roll to kind of go different and come back up to avoid things. He has a sequence where he's getting chased by a bunch of bombs or missiles, knocks them all off around the helicarrier. It's beautiful, man. Just anything action oriented. Russo brothers, whoo. Let alone the story too. I mean, the story that is in this, just everything about this movie, phenomenal. You know, so it's no shock that at the end of the day, these 2 guys are now they're our guys. And I couldn't be happier about that. Now, of course, if we're talking about a Cap movie, one of the best things in this movie is Chris Evans, man. His Captain America is wonderful, and like he gets a new suit that's a little bit duller. It's not as bright blue because he's going on a lot of these undercover missions. Not that he's undercover, but like all these like spy ops. So that's cool. Even his shield at the beginning is kind of dulled down, and the normal red and white one kind of shows up later. But oh god, like I said, that first scene right away just locked this movie in as boom, this is the best. This is the Captain America movie. Knew it 10 minutes into the movie. I love the way he uses his shield. Whether it's the way he throws it in that opening sequence. At one point he falls out of a window, he puts it under him so that he lands on it and lets the vibranium kind of absorb most of the fall so he survives. He takes out a Quinjet with it. Oh my god, man, this scene. Talk about great CGI work, man. He's on, again, love when we get Cap on his bike. We get classic, iconic Cap shots on the bike in every movie that he's in. No different here. He's riding his bike. He's got a shield on his back. You get that side shot, and a Quinjet comes and is like, stop. And he slams on the brakes, jumps off, and throws the shield into one of the jets. Causes the Quinjet to kind of start spinning out of control. He jumps up and just does all this other awesome stuff to blow the Quinjet up, and it's glorious. Then there's a bunch of sequences where he's getting shot at and he starts deflecting bullets, and then it's like, oh wait, I can ricochet these bullets and use them to my advantage to take dudes out. It's wonderful. They got so inventive with the shield in this movie, and it works so well. I love him dealing, like I said, the whole movie, I love this concept of the soldier versus the spy. That first mission, he's fighting the guy they're chasing, and what an awesome hand-to-hand combat sequence that is, man. Gorgeous to watch. And at one point he's like, oh, he's always speaking in French, this guy, but like he basically says, oh, I thought you were more than a shield. And Cap throws the shield, takes the mask off. It's like, let's go, bro. But in the midst of that, he's calling Natasha, like, hey Natasha, we need you to help, like, here. And he's not getting any response. Ends up crashing through a door with him, and where's Natasha? Stealing intel off of this boat that's shield intel, because just trying to recover as much, and he didn't know about it. And this just creates this riff at the beginning that just kind of lingers through everything, right? It's the whole, how can I trust you if you're doing things or having my people who are on a mission with me, talking to Nick Fury, of course, how can I do things if I don't know that other people on my team are doing other things? And that stuff drives him nuts because he's a soldier. It's give me my orders, I do my orders. Whereas like this, like give me my orders, I do my orders, but oh wait, other people have orders too that are completely different, and we're not going to tell you because in order to win in the spy world, you can't reveal your secrets to everybody. And just that comes through the whole movie. It's that, and then the idea of freedom versus fear, which is a conversation he has with Fury when they're talking about the helicarriers. And it's this concept of like, we're going to rule with that's not freedom. And that warps itself from the Hydra perspective of like, we're going to give you freedom by wiping out anything that's a threat, right? Like Redford has this line to Fury toward the end of the movie, where he goes, and if you haven't figured it out, Robert Redford ends up being our main Hydra bad guy. But like he says to him, he's like, we have all the same, enemies you have, war, anarchy, and this will take it all out. And it's that idea of freedom versus what actual freedom is, and that's what Cap stands for. Love that in this movie, man. It plays so well. I love, like I said, his relationships on screen are phenomenal. Starts right away with Sam Wilson, and again, just where that humor can kind of interject itself sometimes. Oh god, man! You see Sam, you can see him jogging, and all of a sudden, here comes Captain America, and he's always saying, "What is it? It's on the left." He's always passing. You pass on the left. Cap, boom, 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 running so much faster than Anthony Mackie. He's like, on the left, and they cut to a different spot in DC, and you see Mackie still running, and Cap comes by again, on the left, and it's just great. Sets up, this awesome bit between them later on where he's like, don't you say it, and Cap's like, on the left. But that sequence is just awesome, and that's how they meet. It's a cool way for them to meet, and they start talking, because obviously, Falcon, we find out, is an ex-vet, works at the local VFW, and he's like, Cap, you should come by sometime. And then they're kind of talking about what he was in for and what he did, and then he's like, oh man, you probably missed the old days. And Cap's like, nah, man, it's not too bad now. He goes, he's like, food is better. There's no polio. Internet is so helpful. Sam tells him, you know what, listen to Marvin Gaye, 1972 Trouble Man soundtrack. Covers everything that you missed, all packed onto one album. Cap whips out this little pen and pad and writes it down. He's like, I'll add it to my list. And his list includes watching I Love Lucy, the moon landing, the Berlin Wall up and the Berlin Wall down, Steve Jobs, Apple, Pisco, Thai food, Star Wars and Star Trek, Nirvana, the band, Rocky 2 question mark. So just like little things like that, man, it's so cool. And it starts their relationship off on a really, really good note. So much so that when Cap kind of goes to Sam's house, it's like, hey, we need a place to hide out for a minute. And they start talking. He's like, hey, I've got something, man. This is my resume. And he's like, you don't have to help. He's like, are you kidding me? Captain America needs help? I am so in. Their bonding is just, I love how easily they bond together. And with Cap not having Bucky, it's cool to see him now have a friend that's an ally again. Obviously the Avengers are all allies of his, but he's not necessarily friends with anybody. Like in that group per se, outside of now, he builds his relation with Natasha, but boom, real legit friend in Sam Wilson right away. And their teamwork is great, man. There's a sequence where Cap is gonna like threaten to throw Sidwell, who's a SHIELD Hydra agent, throw him off, and he goes, "No, you're right. That's not my style. It's her style." She kicks him off. Boom! Falcon comes flying in. It's the first time we get to see him wear the Falcon wings. Drops him back off. Bails Cap out of a situation, catching and dropping in places. So the way they work together, just all awesome. That being said, since we're on Sam Wilson and Anthony Mackie, God, man, such a nice add to the universe. I love that he brings the Falcon gear. He says that he used to fly, and this Cap just assumes, like, you said you were a pilot. I was like, I never said I was a pilot. He has the Falcon. Well, doesn't have them. They have to go steal them. But he brings the Falcon wings to the table so that when he's operating the Falcon wings, he knows everything he's doing, man. Like, when his guns come out and the way they whip out into his hands when he's flying is awesome. As I mentioned, the CGI stuff with him and the way he uses his wings when he's trying to avoid or get out of situations, how he can just cut them off so he'll drop drastically and then bring them right back on and swoop out of the way of stuff. It's just awesome. All of his action sequences, most of the action sequences in this movie, super inventive. And then there's Cap. Like I said, one of my favorite things in this whole movie is Cap and Natasha. It almost looks like a romance budding. Like there's multiple times you're like, oh my God, they're just gonna grab each other, but they don't, because that's not their relationship. But you can kind of see where Natasha's starting to care more for Cap as a person as she works directly with him all the time. And I just love their bond, man. They have, it's obviously you get the whole, I don't know if I can trust you bit after the first mission. And then when Fury gets shot and ultimately dies, we'll talk about that. He gives him a flash drive, and I love Cap doesn't know what to do with it, sticks it in a vending machine. The guy's loading up. It's in a bubblegum wrap. So when he comes to go back around to grab it, it's not there. And boom, there's Natasha's reflection. She's popping bubblegum. And she's like, I have it. And they have this conversation like, I don't know if I can trust you. Like, how do I know I can trust you? And then once they get past that, it's like, we don't have a choice. We have to trust each other right now. Then their relationship gets so good, man. I mean, like I said, not always bringing up, why don't you date so and such from this department or this department? Just trying to get him to go out and just not always be Captain America, which is something that Cap probably needs in his life. And, they had this conversation in the car where they're kind of talking about this, and she goes, oh man, where did Captain America learn to boost a car? And he's like, in Nazi Germany, and we're borrowing it, so take your feet off the dashboard. Like stuff like that between them is great. They have a scene where they're on the run. They go to an Apple store to plug the flash drive in, but as soon as they do, they have about 9 minutes before SHIELD shows up, or in this case, Hydra. And when they do, they have to kind of duck out of this mall, and Cap is like seeing guys coming. He's like, all right, I'm gonna take the guy on the right, you're gonna take the guy on the left. And she's like, just put your arm around me and laugh like I said something funny. And I love, he has a hat on and glasses in this scene, and he does. He starts laughing and walk right by a guy. They're on an elevator, and she's like, kiss me. He's like, what? She's like, public displays of affection make people uncomfortable. He's like, you're darn right. And she kisses him. Grillo turns away, goes right up, they go by him. The idea of these spy techniques. And then that leads to that car conversation where Nat even calls out, it's like, was that your first kiss since 1945? He's like, that bad? She's like, I didn't say that. He's like, well, you're essentially saying that. And they have just all these cute moments, and then they just kick all the ass when they're together on screen. I love everything that Black Widow is bringing and just seeing her work more directly than we've gotten to see her in the past. She gets a ton of time in this movie. She has a great body switch toward the end where she impersonates somebody. Her whole thing is she mentions, that's the other thing I love. She mentions in Avengers that she wants to clean the red from her slate, and that is something she does by releasing everything. Like, if you put everything up on, it's not just Hydra's secrets, it's all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s secrets. Everyone will know who you are. And that's what she wants. And then she gets this awesome courtroom sequence that's totally setting up what happens in Civil War with the Sokovia Accords, where it's like, go ahead, you want to arrest me? Arrest me for whatever I have on there. You guys need us. So you know where to come find me. And I love ScarJo so much. But we must continue. I also love Cap and Nick Fury. Like I said, they have just awesome conversations about just spy games and how the world should be and how we should be defending things. I love Samuel Jackson, man. He's so good. He gets to do a bunch more. Like I said, he has that awesome action car chase sequence. And then Spy Game 101 by faking his own death. I mean, obviously, he legitimately gets shot, man. I mean, arteries, broken sternum, broken collarbone. He gets messed up. But they use a sedative that Banner came up with to control heart rate to keep the big green guy in, which doesn't work. But Fury's like, we figured out a way to use it, and he fakes his death. And that hurts. It cuts Nat to the core because she's like he's like a father figure to her, and he couldn't trust her with it. He could only trust Maria. And it's great spy stuff. However, this is one of those ongoing problems that we're starting to see as we watch these movies in the universe where they fake death a lot, right? Loki's got 2 already. Now Samuel Jackson's got 1, and this is one of the big gripes, is that death holds no meaning because everybody always comes back. Now, granted, Fury's death in this movie makes a lot of sense, and I love that at the end he's standing there looking at his own grave with Cap, and they kind of have this moment, and it's awesome. But yeah, it's just one of those things that's just kind of like, all right, we got to stop doing this. I also love any scene with Fury and Robert Redford, who is supposedly a friend of his from back in the day. Anytime they're on screen together, man, especially toward the end, once we know that he's a Hydra agent and he's the one that tried to kill Nick, the tension is so good in those sequences. He has this line where he's like, in order to let everything out, you need 2 alpha people, and it's like retinal scans. And he's like, hey, you don't think when we killed you, we didn't wipe all your stuff? He's like, yeah, you probably deleted my passwords, maybe even my retinal scan. But if you're gonna take me down, you better be looking with both eyes. And takes off the patch, and you see his messed up eye, and that's his retinal scan. Oh God, so good. And then even at the end, Nick, this is really the last time we get to see Sam for a while, and he sets it all on fire, man, including the eye patch. He's like, I'm going to Europe and getting out of Dodge because I have to. So I love him. Maria Hill, played by Kobe Smulders, awesome. Very small stuff for her, but again, just a really, really nice add to the group to get to see Maria kind of doing more stuff. Then there's, of course, Agent 13, who I mentioned, who's played by Emily Van Camp. Her name, I guess, in the movie is also Kate, but she's always known as Agent 13. She pops up in Civil War later. I love her, man. Like, a couple just very small sequences, but when she does, they're good, man. She has a nice little fight sequence with Grillo that kind of has some cool stuff. She's a nice add and gets to play in Civil War even more. Also, Cap and back on screen with Peggy Carter, man. He goes and visits her at the hospital, and what a heartbreaking moment in the movie. Like, has this conversation that's really cathartic, and then she's like, oh my gosh, Steve, you're alive. Like, she kind of has an Alzheimer's, lapse. But it was just so nice to get him and Peggy on screen again. To have that kind of hey, it's like, no, you're my best girl. I still owe you a dance. Just such an upstanding dude. I love that. But, obviously, it's just one of those heartbreaking moments, to see because you can relate to it. And then, as I said, anything that's Cap and Winter Soldier. The thing I love about them is they go back in time. They do some flashbacks where we get to see him and Bucky, and we get to see Skinny Steve again. He looks even better than the first Cap version of Skinny Steve. They just really figured out how to clean up that CGI. But I love when they're on screen together. Like I said, all their action sequences are really tight. Obviously, Winter Soldier doesn't get to talk a whole lot in the movie. But, I mean, he's phenomenal on screen. He just looks so good. All of his stunt work and action sequences are great. But then him and Cap have this awesome moment at the end where Cap's like, I'm not going to fight you anymore, Bucky. Like, I won't kill you. You're my best friend, man. It's like, and he goes, you know me. And he's like, I'm not going to fight you. And he tells Bucky, "You're my friend," and Bucky just looks at him and he goes, "You're my mission." And he starts beating him, punching him in the face, like just knocking him out. He's like, "You're my mission," and Cap's like, "Then finish it, because I'm with you to the end of the line." Call back to Captain America, the first Avenger, and Bucky stops, and then something hits, something breaks, and Bucky's hanging on, and he watches Cap fall. Talk about a flip flop, man! Like Captain America, Cap's hanging on, watching Bucky fall. Now they flip it, and I think that's the thing that really breaks Bucky's character out of the Winter Soldier. And he's not all the way there, and at the end of the movie, he kind of goes off to this Captain America museum, which leads to a great scene that we'll talk about in a different video when Cap has to go steal his old suit. That's the other thing I love. He has the new suit that gets confiscated, and then he puts on a new suit, and it's wonderful. But yeah, man, just like I love the way that he's programmed by Hydra to Winter Soldier, and that he when he's starting to have flashbacks because he's seen Cap and it's kind of glitching, and they're like, just wipe him and start over. And it kind of sets up, again, more stuff down the road. Also, Robert Redford, he's great. He's just a great spy villain. He comes off as kind of like a father figure. They originally start to aim everything at Fury after the botched stuff that goes on the ship scene. And Cap is like, if you knew Nick Fury, it's not him. He's like, why do you think we're having this conversation? You think you can trust him? He ends up being like the biggest Hydra guy. And just, again, the whole fear and freedom, his disillusioned ideas, it's very terrorist oriented. It's the idea of kill one to save 100. This is kill 20 million to save 7 billion. And, Cap and even Nick Fury are like, no, man, you can't do that. And I love that Hydra's been infiltrated in S.H.I.E.L.D. since the very beginning. There's a great sequence where Cap gets to go back to his old base, and they're trying to find where the signal is coming from that sent out this info, and Nat's like, it must not be here. Cap's like, that bunker, no, military weapons shouldn't be this close to this portion of the thing. That's wrong. They go in, it's a secret S.H.I.E.L.D. base. You get to see Howard Stark up on the wall, which leads to Nat asking him about Peggy Carter, who's also on the wall, and he just doesn't, Cap ignores it and goes on. When they finally plug it in and turn everything on, who pops up on the computer screen but good old Dr. Artem Zola. And he's the guy who created the Insight algorithm, which led to Project Insight, and the algorithm is what pinpoints and determines what targets are threats to Hydra, which include Bruce Banner, and they drop Stephen Strange's name, because they can say they can predict, the algorithm predicts the future, who's going to be a problem for Hydra. So awesome. I love all that. But the whole sequence in the little bunker is amazing. I love that we get to bring Dr. Zola back, and he kind of tells you that he was recruited by S.H.I.E.L.D., but he was always Hydra. And that's led Hydra, cut off one head and 2 more grow. And then that leads to us seeing Sidwell, who's a guy who's popped up for S.H.I.E.L.D. a bunch of times. He has an interaction with good old Gary Shandling, and we find out that the Senator is also a Hydra agent. So just really, really cool. I also love some of the world building stuff that's in this. Like I said, bring back Gary Shandling and Artem Zola, and just, again, they don't need to world build anymore, but the world does exist and just keeps getting bigger. This movie is flawless, man. I could go on for hours, but I won't. I will stop, and I will let you talk now. What did you think of Captain America Winter Soldier? Do you think it's the best solo film? Do you think it's the best Captain America film? Do you think this is the best version of Captain America? Hit those comments, let me know. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. And as always, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and the little bell so that you get alerts every time I make a new video, including the next installment of the Seaman's Infinity War Countdown. For the Seaman's Cinema Sit-Down, I am the Seaman, and I am signing off. God, I love you, Winter Soldier!